Is your son James going to enter the family business?
Well, James has his own life, and my daughter has her own life, and to some extent, yes, they work with us, particularly James. Um, and but kids have got to do what they want to do, and the degree to which they are operating in my sphere, I think we don't really promote or publicize their involvement because from their point of view, I don't think it really helps them to be you know brought into the family domain. I mean, my wife for a long time has worked with me. I mean, even before we met, she was in press and promotion at BMI Records, and then Chrysalis Records, and worked for us for a while. Eventually, we had a relationship, got married, had children, and she works with me again now, and is mainly on the financial stuff. She's over the years learnt a lot about the accounting side of things, and so she manages the money, and that's very useful to have someone who you trust that's going to take care of what is potentially, I guess, one of the biggest problems that exist for people making music for a living is they end up falling out and arguing over money. And my theory is, just give your wife all of the money, all of the time, and then there are no arguments.
Really getting me in hot
Oh,
water here.
it works brilliantly because most women are so much better at organizing these things, and given I say most women, I mean, I know there will be some shopaholics and some crazy, people out there, but most women are just more organizational. It's a natural extension of things that women on average are good at and men aren't. And these stereotypes, which a lot of us in a politically correct age spend a lot of time trying to break down and get all hot and bothered about these stereotypical ways of relating to men, women, children, and aging aunts. But they're there for a good reason, because people do tend, rightly or wrongly, to fall into these categories. So rather than try and change them, work with it. If that's the system that's been working for 10,000 years, well, let's try and capitalize on the asset. Let's not try and change people. And my feeling is that most women are better at organizing the family purse strings than the guys. I mean, I know lots of cases where that is true. I don't think I know amongst personal friends or acquaintances, I can't think of anybody for whom that's not true. But of course, there are cases where it won't work. But I just strongly feel that there's so many arguments occur in musicians. Will fight and argue about things. But best thing is just let it be organized by someone that they don't feel threatened by, and women are much less threatening when it comes to management and organizational things. I think by and large they make pretty good, whether it's a new chief of police, or whether it's the head of a corporation, or whether it's just the head of the family household when it comes to the grocery bill. In lots of ways, women just sometimes don't really get either the encouragement or the opportunity to get control and to manage those things. And when they do, they often prove that they're superior to their predecessors. And so I'm always keen on the idea. It's great to marry a woman who's got a proper job and works for a living on whatever level it is. It's nice to be part of a working family and not just have this feeling that you're the guy who comes home every night and all the wife does is make the bed, put the food on the table, and change the diapers. It's nice to have the feeling that you do work together as a family.
Do you and Shona still have the salmon operations in Scotland?
Fish. I mean, I've been. It's 25 years, I think, since I started in aquaculture, and technically I still own some salmon farms, and I'm a director of a fairly large company in fish processing, but I'm not actively involved day to day. And during the last 2 or 3 years, I've really tried to either divest myself of certain interests and assets, and to remain involved, but not in a day-to-day capacity, because at this point in my life, I don't really have. There are other things in music that I want to do, and I don't really find the time or the energy to be involved in what is a completely different industry. It's something that I would rather stay away from on a day-to-day level. But of course, I have an interest in it because it's what I did for a lot of years. But right now, I'd rather be doing more things in music while I'm still able to do that, because that won't be available for forever.
And you were able to build those companies quite substantially, weren't you? You started.
Well, we started a company from very small beginnings in 1978, and by the 90s we were employing 400 people in our factories and fish farms, and happily those jobs are still there. In an area of rural Scotland where it's not easy to find not just work but career-related work, long-term work. So I'm pleased that those companies, those projects, those businesses are still there, being operated daily and employing a decent number of people. But in some cases, those businesses have either been sold to other people, or the assets leased to other people, or companies have merged with other companies. So from my point of view, I'm not carrying the can. I don't have to wake up every morning worrying about 400 people going to, are their jobs safe because of some decision I might make, later in the day. Those responsibilities are somebody else's now, so I don't have to get concerned as to my decision making affecting other people. And working in the musical world is kind of easy because you're only affecting the day-to-day lives of a relatively small group of people at any one time. But you get emails from somebody in the band saying, any idea how much money I'm going to earn next year, because my accountant's getting a little worried, and I need to give him an estimate of my earnings so we can work out our tax returns for. I actually had an email from one of the Jethro Tull guys a few days ago, and I had to sit down and try to make an estimate of his pre-tax earnings, which is not easy because there are tours and concerts in discussion, things that we might do but haven't even been, even roughed out on paper yet. And that's quite difficult, to tell people who are just effectively, they're not on the payroll so much as casual employees of the employment companies, because we structure our business in a very traditional and tax accountable way, because we pay taxes in every country in which we play. We pay withholding taxes to the governments of every country in which we play. Plus, we're liable for tax in our country of residence, which is the UK. So the taxation side of things become much more complicated in recent years now that all countries impose withholding tax on foreign entertainers. And that's all, basically without exception now. I don't know of any country, and I'm looking at South American tours next year, and India, Dubai, apart from the USA and all the European and Eastern European countries, relatively new countries like Romania and Bulgaria that are countries in which we can play, but they're all imposing withholding taxes. And you have to take that into account when you're structuring a deal and putting together whether it's one concert or a tour. And the implications of all of those things, whether or not you're going to get tax certificates, whereby under double taxation agreements, if they exist between those countries and your country of residence, you may offset tax in one country against your tax liability in your country of residence. All of these things, 15, 20 years ago, you had to do was get on the phone to your agent and say yes or no when it came to it's not like that anymore. You've got to be an accountant, a tax advisor, and a travel agent these days if you're going to put together tours. And that's what I do. I quite enjoy doing that stuff. It's what keeps me relatively sane as a musician, to have a more pragmatic function, a more just logical, almost secretarial function sometimes, just dealing with the part of making music, which is the real pedantic, how do I get from A to B and get these crew guys and the band and everybody together, and getting into the taxation side of things, getting into the logistics of travel, getting into the visas and all of the other complications of moving around the world, particularly in a post 9/11 environment. It's something that keeps you on your toes. Sure. The rules keep changing out there in the real world, and regarding travel restrictions, regarding taxation issues, these things are not static. They're always changing. So you really got to keep up with it. You've got to start to read the papers.